Okay, so we'll get started here. This question says, which of the following factors is least important in the appraisal of an old single-family residence? So what's important to talk about here first is that it says it's an older single-family residence. So we know that it's not going to be built in the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months. It's older construction. And also remember that appraisal is a pretty heavily tested section on your real estate exam. So understanding valuation and market analysis is going to be important. So the question again also says, which of the following is least important? So we know a few of these are going to be pretty important or very important. One of these is not going to be so important, and that's the one that we're going to be wanting to figure out. So look at letter A. A says the purpose of the appraisal. That's important. Are we appraising for the purpose of a refinance? Are we appraising for the purpose of a purchase? The purpose of the appraisal is important. B says the adaptability of the building to the site. Sure, that's important. We're going to want to know that if it's a house, that it's zoned in an area for residential. That's important. C says the physical condition of the building. Of course, the condition of the property is going to be relevant to determining value. So A is important, B is important, C is important. Look at D, the original cost of the construction. The original cost of the construction is not going to be relevant in determining the value for an appraisal of an older single-family home. I mean, if my house was built in 1935 and I'm appraising it today, we don't care if it cost, $5,200 to build in the 1930s. We want to know what it's worth now. So the least important point in the appraisal of an older single-family residence is going to be answer choice D. The original cost of the construction is not going to have any bearing on what the property is currently worth today. So D is going to be our best answer here. Question 2 says a balloon loan is most nearly which of these? Now, it's important to know what a balloon loan is. A balloon loan is a loan where you make payments for a little bit, but the loan isn't paid off at the end. So you have a big fat balloon payment at the end, typically the entire balance of the loan. So this question says, which kind of loan would a balloon loan be involved in? A says a fully amortized loan. A fully amortized loan probably would not have a balloon payment. Why? Well, fully amortized means that the loan is paid off at the end of the loan term. So if it's fully amortized, the loan balance would be zero. You don't need to have a balloon payment. So A is not right. B says a partially amortized loan. That one looks good. A balloon loan is not fully amortized. It's only partially amortized, meaning you still have a big balance at the end of the loan, which requires this balloon payment. So B is going to be our right answer. If the loan isn't all paid off, maybe it's interest only, or you haven't paid all the principal at the end of the maturity date, you're going to have a balloon payment. So B looks good. C and D are just random words that don't really make sense. A self-liquidating loan, that's not really a thing in residential mortgages. D, a standing loan, that doesn't mean anything. It's just trying to trip you up. Best answer here, a balloon loan. That's a loan where you have one big fat payment due at the end. That would be seen on answer choice B, a partially amortized loan, because the loan balance is not paid off. Question 3 says, a contractor obtained a construction loan, like a loan to build, and the loan funds are to be released in a series of progress payments. Most lenders disperse the last payment when what? Now, for this, it's important to remember that a construction loan is a loan, of course, to build. And typically a lender, if I wanted to build a $32 million shopping center, Wells Fargo isn't just going to give me $32 million and say, hey, let us know when you're done. Wells Fargo's going to give me this in draws, right? They'll give me a little bit, and then once some progress is made on the construction, they'll give me a little more. Then when more progress is made, they'll release more. And that last payment probably won't be released until answer choice D, the period to file a lien has expired. So again, you're probably not going to get that last payment until the bank knows that there's no chance of a mechanics lien happening. So now they may require that the contractor or builder get bonded or have a surety or something like that to make sure of this. But look at A. A says they'll give you the last payment when the building is completed. Not necessarily. They want to make sure the lien periods have expired. B, a notice of completion is filed. C, the buyer approves the construction. None of those are correct. The best answer here is going to be answer choice D. Lenders often will release that final payment when the period to file a lien has expired, so the lender knows that they're in the clear. Now, question 4, this is an interesting one here. It says a grant deed is recorded in the county where the what? Now, if let's say I live in Los Angeles County and I buy a piece of real estate in San Diego County. Well, if I live in LA and I buy a property in San Diego, I'm going to get a deed to the property that I just bought. I'm going to want to make sure that deed is recorded, meaning that it's placed in the county recorder so that the whole world knows that I'm the actual owner. But I live in LA, the property's in San Diego. Do I record that deed in LA County because that's where I live? Or do I record it in San Diego County because that's the county that the property is located in? And the best answer here is going to be answer choice D. The grant deed is recorded in the county where the property is located. So if you live in Wyoming and you buy a house in LA County, you don't record that deed in the Wyoming County Recorder's office. You're going to record it in the county where the property is situated. So again, a grant deed is recorded in the county where the D property is situated. Now, question 5 says an interest in real property may be acquired by either prescription or by adverse possession. The interest resulting from prescription is which of the following? This is an interesting question because both prescription and adverse possession are related concepts. We should know that. And they're both like hostile in some way. Both prescription and adverse possession are hostile, meaning that you are taking the thing that you want, even though the person that owns the land currently doesn't want to give it to you. Now, there's a difference between the two. Adverse possession, and I'm hoping you might at least have seen this term at this point in your studies as you prepare for the real estate exam. But adverse possession is basically where you have a claim of right to a property, but you don't have the deed. And you basically hostilely take it over. You notoriously and openly possess the land, you pay the property taxes on it, you file under some claim of right or color of title, and you can get ownership. Adverse possession is sort of a hostile takeover to own a piece of real estate by paying the property taxes and notoriously and adversely occupying the property for 5 years. Prescription's different though. Prescription is you don't have to pay the property taxes over the property that you want. A prescriptive easement or an easement by prescription is an easement or right of way to use another's land that you get not by paying the property taxes, but just by notoriously and openly using it. So in adverse possession, what I want is ownership. I pay the property taxes, I notoriously and openly and hostilely occupy the property under some claim of right, and I can get ownership of the property through adverse possession. Prescription is a related concept. It's hostile, and you have to notoriously and adversely and openly and hostilely use the land upon which you want the easement, but you don't need to pay the property taxes in prescription, because in prescription, you're not trying to get ownership. In prescription, you're trying to get the right to use someone else's land. For example, let's say that there's a gas station on the corner right by my office. And it's an annoying little corner because there's a no right turn on red signal. So what a lot of people do in the morning is, they want to beat the traffic. So they kind of cut through the gas station to avoid the red light and pop out the other side. What's crazy is that through this concept of prescription, in theory, if you were to openly, hostilely, and notoriously do this continuously for 5 years, you may have the right to use that gas station for access. So the best answer here, again, the question says, an interest in real property may be acquired by either prescription or by adverse possession. The interest resulting from prescription is A, the right to use another's land. It's not possessory title. You're not getting ownership. It's not an ownership interest, answer choice C, or equitable interest. It's not a grant of the property privately. It's simply A, the right to use another's land through a hostile and prescriptive easement. Best answer here, going to be answer choice A. Now let's look at question 6. It says, the covenant of quiet enjoyment most directly relates to what? Now, a covenant, that word just means promise. A covenant of quiet enjoyment is a promise. And this is a promise specifically in like landlord-tenant relations. Quiet enjoyment doesn't mean that the landlord promises you that the neighborhood will be quiet. It doesn't promise that you're going to enjoy yourself there and have a good time. But it will say that as long as you possess the property, the landlord's going to stay out of your way. If you're my tenant and you live in the property, you possess it, you should be able to possess it free of the landlord's nuisance. So, what's an example of a landlord breaching quiet enjoyment? I don't know, let's say a surprise inspection at 2:30 in the morning, or the landlord constantly harassing the tenant. Landlords can't do that because of this covenant of quiet enjoyment. You should be able to possess, answer choice B, you should be able to possess the property free of the nuisance and bother of the landlord. Best answer here going to be answer choice B. It doesn't relate to title, answer choice C. It doesn't relate to nuisances on adjoining property. Adjoining means next door. It relates to the landlord not bothering the tenant on the property in question. They should be able to possess it free of the landlord's nuisance. Best answer here going to be answer choice B. Question 7 says, generally, the taking of private land by governmental bodies for public use is governed by due process of law and is accomplished through which of these? So the government has this crazy right to take private property for some public use. And when I say crazy, I don't necessarily want you to think I mean unfair, but I mean crazy powerful. The government has the right, if they need your house, to build a freeway, to widen a road, to build a school, to build a park, for some public use. The government has the right to take your private property upon paying just compensation and fair market value. That power is known as answer choice B, eminent domain. So again, eminent domain is the supreme power of the government to take private property for some public use. That's B, eminent domain. Don't get this mixed up with answer choice D, escheat. Escheat is where somebody dies intestate, which is without a will, and they have no heirs. Their property could escheat to the state if you have no will and you have no heirs. That's not this. This is the government taking private property for public use through answer choice B, eminent domain. Question 8 says, governmental land use and planning, zoning, are important exercises of what? So the government has the power to zone things a certain way. And if you think about why the government zones things a certain way, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't want a nuclear dump next to a kindergarten. Obviously, I don't want property zoned for nuclear waste to be right next to where kids go to school. That wouldn't benefit public health, safety, and welfare. I don't want a bar right next door to a high school. That wouldn't benefit public health, safety, and welfare. So this concept of zoning is where the government has the power to land use and plan to benefit public health, safety, and welfare. The concept of police power, answer choice B, is the supreme power of the government to enact laws to promote public health, safety, and welfare. Zoning is an exercise of police power. Zoning is the government trying to dictate land use in an area to benefit public health, safety, and welfare. Again, we don't want nuclear dumps next to kindergartens. We don't want bars next to high schools. This would not benefit public health, safety, and welfare. So this governmental land use and zoning and planning are important examples of answer choice B, the use of police power. It's not the exercise of eminent domain. That's the power of the government to take private property for public use. It's not answer choice C, that's deed restrictions. Deed restrictions are private controls on real estate. This is like where private citizens, like a homeowners association, tells you, what color you can paint your front door and when you can use the condo pool. That's not private, or that's private control, excuse me. That's not public control. This question's talking about governmental land use, so it can't be deed restrictions. It's got to relate to zoning and answer choice B, police power. Question 9 says, most contracts between a seller and a broker for the purpose of selling real estate are in the form of what? So if a seller has a contract with the broker to sell their property, it's not going to be answer choice A. A says a general power of attorney. That's not common. How often when you sell your house do you give your real estate agent power of attorney and the ability to act for you? This is not a thing. Answer choice B says a novation. A novation is substituting one agreement for another. That's not right. Answer choice C says a written agreement. That's our right answer. Most contracts between a seller and a broker for the purpose of selling real estate are going to be in the form of a written agreement. Sellers and their brokers are going to sign a written document with one another in order to have a meeting of the minds in terms of the listing. D says an assignment. No, it's not an assignment. An assignment is where we substitute one party for another in a contract. Best answer is going to be answer choice C. This is kind of an easy one, right? Most contracts between a seller and a broker for the purpose of selling real estate are going to be in a written agreement. And the statute of frauds, by the way, is going to require that. So best answer here, going to be answer choice C. Question 10 says, in arriving at effective gross income, an appraiser of rental property makes a deduction for what? So it's important to know that there's kind of 3 levels when you analyze an investment income piece of real estate. We're going to start at the top with potential gross income. Potential gross income is the maximum theoretical income that the property could produce. So if we were 100% full and everyone's paying on time and everyone's paying the maximum theoretical rent, that's potential gross income. That's never possible, right? We're going to come down to effective gross income after that. So we start with potential gross income. We subtract out our vacancy and collection losses. We get to effective gross income. From effective gross income, we take out all our operating expenses like property taxes, maintenance, management, insurance, and we get to net operating income. So potential gross income is the maximum theoretical rent the property could produce. Everyone's paying on time, everyone's paying max rent. We subtract out vacancy and collection losses and we get effective gross income. From effective gross income, we subtract out all of our operating expenses and we get net operating income. So now that we have that backstory, let's look at the question again. It says, in arriving at an effective gross income figure, an appraiser of rental property makes a deduction for what? So to get to effective gross income, we start with potential gross income, subtract out answer choice C, our vacancy, and we get effective gross income. Now, property taxes and repairs are going to come off of effective gross income to get us net operating income, but that's not what this question asks. This question says simply to get to effective gross income, we start with potential gross income, subtract out our vacancy, answer choice C, and we get to effective gross income. Now, this is just a sample of some questions and how we break down the topics on the exam. If you want to sign up for our full package and take advantage of all of our tools and our iPhone and Android app and all the tools necessary to help you pass the test, go to crashcourseonline.com. We'd love to help you pass the exam and build a career in real estate. Hope this helped, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.